Here she is. Okay, perfect.
Woohoo!
Ken as well, because Jenny is not going to be
We're
here.
meeting for 2 minutes, I'll be right in.
Okay. I can't find it out.
Hey, Andy, can you do me a favor? Can you just double check that we're streaming? YouTube?
Yeah, right. More. Yep. Sometimes.
But I'm just trying to get mine this I just don't see them, just
Okay.
the camera.
Yeah, we'll still want to do that in comment period. Is that what you're asking?
No, about the video.
Oh, the,
It's gone.
okay. Yeah, we don't have to say that because we're not in,
I'm not remote.
we're not remote anymore.
Do we officially call it to order? Even though-
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, what time is it? It is 4:39 and we are officially calling this meeting to order, although I will note that we do not have quorum. So we do start with open comment period. Do we have any comments from the public? No? All right. I will do roll call. So starting with Adam,
Yeah, here.
Omar,
Yes.
Tom.
Here.
Anna,
Here.
Sarah. Here. That's it. And May, here. So we cannot do the approval of the agenda or the consensus agenda. So I will move on to President's business. So we'll start with the foundation report. Do we have a foundation report for today?
I don't have one.
I can report that the summer ask did go out and overwhelmingly positive response to their summer ask. So they, we see those donations that are coming in and just a really stacks of donations. So kudos to them and to the development team for the work that they did on that.
All right, thank you, Karen. Then we have a Friends report.
Friends did another sidewalk sale this last weekend, yes. And again, raised over $1,000 and moved down a bunch of the backlog of inventory that they have. So they've been doing great in this interim. So kudos to them. Another one is coming up in August.
So happy that you have all this information on hand. This one's gonna be a tricky one though. Salco report, and we don't have Josh there today,
Not
so we do not have an update. No Salco report, Karen?
Nope.
I'm sorry, the interruption.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Well, you know what, we will get to that under,
Actually, we skipped right over it.
no, I know, but we can get to
Oh, okay.
that in
Okay.
the, chat, within context of new business. So any Salco report?
Well, what I will tell you is that I reached out to Krista to find out whether Josh had resigned from the Citywide board. And he has not, but he has also not attended. So they are assuming he's resigning since he resigned from our board and he's a representative from our board. So that is a position that we'll need to fill.
Okay. We do not have a Salco update today. Do we have a youth representative this morning?
There's not much to say, I guess, from me. Youth in Rochester are enjoying the summer, time off of school. There are summer school classes at different high schools. There's also kind of affiliate community education classes that some students are attending. And obviously Rochester events, like the Delaware Riverside concerts, the night market, are just some events that youth have been enjoying. And as we get into, I guess, August in the future, I guess a couple of weeks will be a transition for many students from just thinking about summer to kind of having to think back about going back to school. Sports will be starting, and people will be getting busier, but hopefully not dropping off their reading list. So that's my report on that.
Great, Sarah. Yeah, I too am in that summer mindset right now. But I want to talk about something a little bit more personal to like the work that I've been doing. So I think I might have brought it up briefly in the past that I work with the Youth Commission to sort of like create a resolution within the county to ban conversion therapy. And we did garner support from the county. we brought it up to the Senate level, with the help of Dave Senjum. Unfortunately, it didn't get passed there, due to like the majority just not being in our favor. But recently, last week, Governor Walz actually signed an executive order banning conversion therapy within the state. So that was something I was really happy about, and I thought I'd share with you guys. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my youth report.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it, really exciting.
No, it felt really good that like, even though like our like method didn't work, it finally like happened, you know.
That's an awesome idea for you guys within the context of the youth library board, like maybe figuring out more opportunities to engage in legislation or driving legislation.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And I think that's also something that might be important to highlight with like, I know how we make like special sort of displays for like certain events and things like that. So I think maybe we could like just like increasing like shedding light on like LGBT like information rights, like books like that might be like helpful to help kids like sort of like learn more and like maybe understand their sexuality.
And something that I found really wonderful about what the library has already been doing in the different sections, specifically in like the YA like teen area, the Teenscape is something where I've just loved how you guys have organized things that are kind of pertinent to all different BIPOC and LGBTQIA like spreading awareness, because I think that's a critical role that the library plays in our community. And then I think also continuing that on even past the designated months that a certain group is kind of allotted for their kind of outreach. So that's just something that I've noticed that the library is doing already, and something that can continue and impact a lot of youth all around Rochester.
Oh, and to add on to that, I attended this month's school board meeting where I'm sure you guys heard about like the issues that arose with like critical race theory and things like that, like how like there's still this like mass like misunderstanding and sort of like I guess like blissful ignorance to the issue. So I think what the libraries do with inclusion and highlighting these sort of like these racial plights and stories is like really important. I think we should like hammer down and focus on that as well. Just to like provide to the people like and like kids like information that they're not getting in other areas. So I think what we're doing is great, and then keeping it will be just spectacular. So yeah.
Do the youth reps have the opportunity to work with library operations or administration in some capacity to curate different displays within the Teenscape? I don't know, can that you?
Yeah, we can talk. Definitely.
I mean, if you have a strong interest, it'd be a great opportunity.
Absolutely. And in response to the school board meeting, we've already put together a book list for kids and teens about race and history, and we have a nice big book display. You want to see it after the meeting?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys want to email me or Audrey and have us connect, or do you want to email them directly?
Connected.
Perfect.
I'm Heather, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you both very much. Moving on to the policy committee report. I catch myself doing it all the time. Policy committee report. I don't think we actually have an update today, do we?
We have an update, we just don't have any of your policy committee members here. But we met last week to talk about the policies that the welcoming committee and Kristen had worked on, and we, though you can't take action, we were asking for approval of volunteer recognition, board recognition, and the collection development policy. And then we provided the research, or Perna provided the research on the expenditure policy, and the recommendation was to raise that to $50,000. Yeah. And then we have 5 policies that we're asking to be rescinded. 3 of those, we made the mistake of putting together the checkout period and fees policy that was approved in June, but we forgot to rescind the 3 policies that were combined into that policy. So there are those 3 policies, and then a complaints policy and a patron assistance policy that are being addressed in a customer service handbook. Okay. I can answer any questions about what you read.
I know we discussed some of this at the last meeting. Are there any other questions that you guys want to ask? Since in the next meeting, it might be more efficient for us to just move to a vote. All right. Then we can move on to the conversation on the self-representative. Okay, well, then I will intervene and go back to 3.1 and introduce our new board member. And actually, do you mind just taking some time to introduce yourself?
Sure, yep. I'm Scott Redenbaugh, and
Scott, 1 second, I will remind you that this is recorded in public. So if you're an overshare like I am, you might want to note that.
yeah, I'm new to Rochester, originally from Champaign, Illinois. I've lived in Ireland the last 6 years with my wife, who's Irish, and she started, she's a doctor, started in April, so just involved with the community, and public libraries mean a lot to me. It's helped me read as a child. I was a great learner when it came to reading, and my library where I'm from really brought me along, so it's a treasure to the community. It's something I'm really good about.
Nice to meet you, Scott, and welcome to the library.
You go around and introduce.
Yeah, would that be helpful? Do you want us to introduce ourselves now, or would you like to do it at the end of the meeting?
Whatever everyone else prefers is fine.
And you feel strongly about now, or here?
Maybe not anybody, so
Okay.
you can talk to us.
Sure. I'm Antonia Shoney. I'm currently the library board president, have served on the board for going on 5 years. Started as well when I moved to Rochester back in 2016, so forever ago.
Adam Myers, I've been a member of the board since 2018, I believe, 2019, mostly something like that. Current secretary of the board and chair of the software.
Since 2017.
Yeah, so my name's Arhan. I am one of the 2 youth representatives that we had for this year. I joined in 2020. And yeah, I graduated this year as well. I'll be a freshman in college. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm the other youth representative who joined in 2020. And I just graduated high school from John Marshall High School, one of the high schools that we have here. And I will be spending a year volunteering for AmeriCorps next year before going to Knox College in Illinois.
So first off, we did not tell you guys congratulations. So congratulations. And we also didn't think about the fact that you are leaving, which means really new youth reps.
Are you guys the new youth reps?
Yep.
Oh, I love that.
You get to come to the table and please introduce yourself.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Really, please join us.
Why don't we start with you?
Hi everyone, my name is Donald Mikowski. I'm a senior. I go to Mayo High School, and I'm excited to be here.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Mikowski. I'm a rising sophomore at Mayo High School, and I'm also excited to be here.
Well, nice to meet you both, and welcome to the advisory board. And our first in-person meeting in a year and a half. So what is your last day? When's your last meeting?
Yeah, I said August because then I have to go to school and stuff.
So their official tenure begins in the September meeting or in August?
I think that's unclear. We can,
That sounds good.
yeah.
And so then we have a quick point on the self-representative. I know Audrey touched on it, but essentially with the departure of Josh, we have 2 vacancies. One is the self-representative and one is of course the executive committee. So we need to figure out how to fill those vacancies. Right now the thought is we will ask for them to hold an appointment or selection process for our new VP. And then with that, that person can then choose to take on the Selco spot, and of course the executive committee spot, or if there's any interest on the team to join Selco, then please just email me and or Audrey, and we can figure that out.
Yeah, so we were thinking that maybe pull the nominating committee together earlier than we normally do, since we have a spot on the executive, or on the executive committee open. You want to seek volunteers for that?
For the nominating
For
committee?
the nominating committee.
We have a lot of people in the background, so I feel like there's a certain pressure. So I feel like an email might be best.
You will send me an email.
But I feel like we should just do both simultaneously, bring the nominating committee together, but also if there's any interest in joining Salvo, please let me know. I'm looking down the line because this is all we have today. So I see policy committee there twice, but we don't need that. We've already gone through policy committee, so we can move on to new business.
Oh, that was supposed to be personnel committee.
Does personnel committee have an update today?
I do.
Perfect.
We're currently in the process of doing the evaluation for the library director, Audrey's position. Yearly evaluation process that we do. So we're soliciting feedback. The request has been submitted to a variety of library staff, city staff, and others that work closely with Audrey. Omar is also a member of the personnel committee. And then,
Should I do one, two?
yeah, and maybe I'd turn the next item over to Audrey.
Okay.
Audrey joined our meeting earlier this week to provide an update.
And announced my retirement. I submitted my retirement notice to the personnel committee, and the notice will go out today. I'll be here for 6 months, so we have time to put in an entire search, but I will be retiring in June.
You said 6 years.
Did I say 6 years?
No, you said 6 months.
Oh, 6 months. I could have misspoken. Yeah, so it was a really hard decision. I'm really excited about volunteering more for the Rochester Reading Champions program and doing other things that I love this job. That's why it's so hard for me. Do even more things than that, so I really want to thank the board. I will send out a copy of my letter that we can do that. Yeah, this is very strange. Strange thing to remember. I know, well, but I have been here for 25 years, so.
Is that long?
I know.
I think it's just strange because there's been a 4-year period where we've had, I think, the same members of the board for the most part. And so now there's just so much transformation, but that's also exciting.
Well, and I really believe we've got such a great foundation to continue to build on.
So I suppose with that, we can move on to new business and delve into the Rochester Reading Champions of Game.
Yeah. Gail, turn it over to Gail.
Hello, everybody. I'm Gail Harris. I have the privilege of coordinating Rochester Reading Champions program since we started 2014. You'll see in the packet that we have a really exciting partnership. Perhaps I could just step back for a minute and just give you a really brief outline of what Reading Champions is. Reading Champions started in 2014. One of the things that we've noticed is that really the barriers to kids getting help in terms of reading are cost and transportation. And so we looked for a way to help struggling readers that was really effective. And we found that the Reading Centre in town was charging, I think at that time it was $40 a lesson for reading help. And people had been paying this for 60-something years, so we knew it must work. And basically what it is a program that's designed for dyslexic readers. However, we discovered it would work for anybody who struggles because of the way it's taught. It really aligns with the science of reading. It really aligns with the National Reading Panel recommendation. So what we do is we raise money. I'm a library staff member, but I don't have a budget. So we raise money with grants and fundraising, and we use that money to pay for training for volunteers. And volunteers, like Audrey, have taken 120 hours of basic training, and then an additional 80 hours of training. So if anybody's interested, talk to me afterwards. So we can get on the training course. But what happens is it's extremely powerful. And so you'll see in your packet, you know, it makes such a difference to students. Our average gain, 80 to 100 lessons, 3 lessons, are 2.7 grades, 2.6, 2.7 grades in reading. We have a ton of referrals from teachers, from principals, from social workers, so that's really, but families can also refer themselves. Our threshold is free and reduced meals. So that's kind of the income threshold for our program. So basically, one of the things that we've noticed is, though, no matter how often we tutor our kids after school, sometimes in the morning, summer is the best time because we can tutor them in the day, but our kids still make progress even when they're exhausted and had a long day at school. We know that if we can get into the school districts, we can make a difference because we can get to kids during the school day. And so we've worked since we started really on trying to get into school districts. We've talked to Stewartville, we've talked to Rochester endlessly. We finally, a couple of years ago, were approached by Dover School District, who said, we want to know more about what you're doing. I said, yes, please, we want to talk to you. So what we did was Audrey and I went to the school and we actually talked to a group of teachers. All the school principals, the elementary, the middle and the high school principals were all there. The superintendent even came to the meeting. They were so interested in hearing how we could help students one-on-one. And what they said was, we want to see it in practice before we commit to anything. So they picked a student and I got to work with that student. Usually it takes about 10 lessons, which is about 5 weeks to see progress. By the second week, the school will get back to us saying, we're interested. Teachers were calling the homeroom teacher of the student that I was working with and said, what's happening? Why is this kid putting his hand up in class? He was 7th grade. He was not for the whole of the school. It's just, it was confidence was building. He was, I can do this, I can answer this. And so then we put 3 teachers through the program. That was last year. This year they came back to us and said, listen, we really believe in this. We're going to we found money. This is the superintendent and his team came back to us and said, we found 70% of the money to set up a teacher to do one-on-one with our tier 3, which is the most struggling readers. And can you help us find the other 30%? So we have a plan. What we're going to do is, we believe in this so strongly. 10% is coming from money that Reading Champions has raised that is housed in the foundation, account, and 20% Mayo are interested in getting this. So we've kind of got the funding for the first year, and hopefully next year we're going to go to Bremer Bank, who are also interested in this. And I tell you, the main reason that it's so brilliant is that if we can get a model to show how this intervention can work in the school system, we can take that model and show all the other school districts and say, this is how it's working. So that's our update. That's our really exciting plan. This has been a wild program. You'll have known, we've had the literacy collection, the literacy hub, we got iPad devices for kids this summer because the school devices go back and kids still need online help. So this is a very innovative program, and this is our latest venture.
Awesome.
Any questions?
So what's in your packet is the agreement with Dover Yoda, what the expectations are. And so we'll bring that back next month. But we're super excited. We have been talking about this since 2014.
Yeah. And I have to tell you that the superintendent from Dover Yoda signed the draft. He was so excited. So it's kind of a mutual excitement. So hang on, we have to get your name in on it. So yeah, it's very exciting. Thank you for supporting the program.
Thank you. I do have one question, but I'm worried I won't like the answer to it.
Okay.
I don't know the processes and all of the policies as well as you do. Is there any sort of policy that requires like a program to be centralized elsewhere once it gains a certain amount of funding and takes on legs in this way, or can it continue to be connected to the library? Awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the library is just a brilliant place to be housed, and I'll tell you, I'm working with a couple of twins who will do the program this summer, and one of the first things we did was they were born in a refugee camp in Doha, and vocabulary and background knowledge is a real limitation for them. They love reading, they're 8 years old, they really like baby mouse graphic novels, and they're really not going to build vocabulary and background knowledge from reading baby mouse. The first week I started working with them, we arranged for Mum to come in. She met with the member of the youth library. She checked out so many books. The next time I visited, their little brother was there showing me his fly guy book, which was Fly Guy Weather, told me all the colours of the rainbow, and the girls have facts for me every time I go. Mostly about big cats, but we'll move on from that. So that's why the library is a perfect.
Awesome.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Have you, like, for this Reading Champions, like, service, I guess, have you heard of, like, the Friendship Place? Have there any talks about, like, working with them or anything like that?
We had contact with them early on, and I reached out to them a couple of times. Yeah, they at first sounded interested, but then didn't follow up.
Okay.
So yeah, there's endless possibilities.
Yeah, sure. I thought this was like that would be like a perfect place to implement it, but if you've already not doing that, that's fine.
But if you know contacts, let them know we're still going, and big personnel changes, and it's hard to know what's happening in organisations at any time if they're really busy. But now maybe.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question as well. I probably won't like the answer either, but tremendous. Is there any way to escalate the approval process without a quorum, or do we have to wait until the next month's meeting to get the?
We do have to have a quorum. What I will say is because of the way the school year, August should be okay.
Okay, that was my only concern.
Yeah.
Was the timing.
No, I was thinking, that was going through my head too, but we should be okay in August.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
But once I sign this, I'm just wondering if there's another document that we could propose and sign at the same time that allows Reading Champions to continue to develop relationships without needing approval for every school district, or is that a bad precedent to set?
This is a contract, so you have really already given us permission to build relationships. It's only when we get into contractual things that we bring them back.
And expedite the process as well. Okay.
No, I appreciate that.
We can move on now, and thank you so much again, to old business, starting with the Citywide Energy District.
Can I speak?
Yeah,
All right,
please.
okay. I apologize for being a little underdressed. I had a stain on my shirt that was making me anxious, so I changed into one that maybe was.
We don't have any dress requirements,
Awesome.
don't worry.
Good to know. I'm also filling in for my colleague Scott, who's the new facilities manager for the city of Rochester, Scott Ramsey. But I know quite a bit to be dangerous on this project and the last slide too. So hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions, and anything I can, I'll bring back to him and get a response for. So yeah, we're excited to talk about district energy concepts, or not concept, but something that's going into design at this point. As you may or may not be aware, the Olmsted County, or the library, receives heating and cooling energy from the waste energy facility that's run by Olmsted County about 2 miles west on the Olmsted County campus. So if you follow west or 4th Street east, the county campus out there, the trash plant, they burn trash, steam comes here, delivered to this building, and that's what heats this place. Unfortunately, the steam line that heats this building is being decommissioned in October of 2023. So that gives us basically a couple of years to figure out a solution, design it, and also construct it so that we can keep our buildings heated and cooled. Fortunately, it's not just the library that's finding themselves in this position, but also Rochester City Hall, Rochester Arts Center, the Mayo Civic Center, and Rochester Civic Theater. So a collection of 5 buildings. So out of this comes kind of an exciting opportunity where we're basically replacing what was a district energy system with a separate, more localized district energy system downtown. This is under design right now. It was approved by City Council in April. So we're working through design with an engineering firm that has a lot of experience designing district energy systems across the country, as well as we have an owner's rep that's helping with the design too, to make sure that can be operated in a way that meets the goals for the city of Rochester from an environmental efficiency and also kind of redundancy, like making sure that the heat's always there when we need it. So the total project budget is $20 million. We do have a request into the state for $10 million for bonding. We're also pursuing some other funding opportunities at the federal level. Biden infrastructure plan, as well as other pots of money, is available that can make some pretty interesting opportunities for this system, including renewable energy and energy efficiency opportunities for the building. So impacts and benefits, this will provide long-term efficiency. We are starting with these 4 buildings, but the plan is to expand it to other buildings in the future. So private and public buildings will be connected. We anticipate decreased operating costs compared to what the library is paying now. And then we also are incorporating distribution capacity for future private development around 500,000 square feet. So right, we're at Rochester Public Library here. These little blue and red lines represent what will be the heating and cooling lines. So heat's represented by red, blue is represented by, or blue is the cold lines or chilled water lines. The system equipment will be housed in the Mayo Civic Center, and then these pipes are just showing where the energy will be transported. Any of the stubs that you see are to connect future buildings, and there's some priority sites that we have in and around the system that we're kind of have our eyes on in order to connect to more private facilities or possibly public in the future. I don't know how to advance slides. But
Let me know whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
So I provided some of this background already. The reason why the steam pipe's going away is that it's kind of in a state of disrepair. So a number of the city facilities have had emergency shutdowns over the years, especially lately at really inopportune times. So it kind of just increased the urgency that we need to figure out a heating and cooling solution that works. And again, kind of the date by which we're shooting to have this open or need to is by the end of October 2023. We did look at replacing the existing steam line, but the costs that you see here are much greater than what the costs were for the solution that we kind of developed, about half the cost. So we're excited about that too. Thanks. So potential expansion opportunities. So these orange buildings here represent kind of where we will start. And then there's some priority sites that are represented in purple here that we think are great opportunities to expand the system in the future. Something the city has going for it is these purple sites right here are already owned by the city. So we're interested in advancing some other strategic priorities of City Council as part of this project too, such as more affordable housing in our community, among others. And then in the future, you may have heard or seen with City Council, they're talking about the South Waterfront Development Plan. The Fullerton lot by Mayo, the Ampey site, and the Kmart site are all owned by 2 property owners. And that is going through a revisioning exercise, basically, of what else could occupy that space now that Ampey's closed, Kmart's closed. So it's largely kind of building a neighborhood in what used to be, or what is, concrete wastelands, a lot of surface parking lots. So they're working through that process now. There's kind of a massing exercise that City Council put together, and there's some interesting kind of drawings and documents of what could be built there. But we see this as a prime opportunity to connect to this growing district energy system over the long term as well. The benefit of that is the more buildings that are connected to a district energy system, the more efficiencies are gained, both from an energy perspective, but also a cost perspective. So that's what we're pretty interested in and continuing to work on over the years here. Next slide, please. Thanks. So what are we doing from a sustainability and efficiency standpoint? So I'm a sustainability director and kind of have a lot of energy efficiency background, but we're lowering the water temperature of the existing system. Right now, the library gets steam, it converts it to hot water, and that hot water is 180 degrees and distributed throughout the facility. We're lowering that to about 130 degrees. which then opens an opportunity for more renewables to be introduced to the system and newer technologies that are way more efficient and sustainable.
And just so I don't understand the impact of that decrease, like it still feels just as warm, what's the difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. It'll feel the same. We do need to make some changes in each facility in order to prepare them for that lower hot water temperature. But the changes are basically more surface area of coils to allow the heat exchange that we need. So with 130-degree air, we still need the air to move over that 130-degree coil, but it just needs to have a little more surface area so that heat transfer can occur. So we're excited by that. So like we said, we need to convert 5 connected buildings to allow and prepare them for this 130-degree water conversion. The efficiency of the boilers themselves are improved by this lower water temperature by 10%. And then we're also anticipating some energy savings by connecting these facilities to begin with. So right now, and our old system didn't really do this and didn't allow for thermal exchange, but we have a pretty interesting collection of buildings here where City Hall is largely a 9 to 5 facility. There's some night meetings, right? But the library is open a little bit later and then stays open a little bit later. The Civic Center events and really big ones where you have a lot of these energy systems and thermal energy needs are particularly at night. So we're able to basically increase the efficiency of the whole system because we just have this space type diversity of all the buildings that are being connected to it. That's also why we're pretty interested in a residential opportunity, because that would even make the system be even more efficient, right? Because they would be largely unoccupied 9 to 5, but have a lot of thermal energy needs overnight. So there's a lot of opportunity here that we're pretty excited about. Next slide.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you. So where we're starting is establishing it, upgrading to a low hot water temperature, and then over time, as more buildings connect, invest in energy movers. And some of the federal and state funding opportunities will also kind of allow us to move to this next step if those come through. But some of the opportunities and ideas are solar thermal installations on the Civic Center. So a portion of the Civic Center roof was built to support a solar installation. We're confirming that solar thermal would work as well. But we also see opportunities on the library roof and the City Hall roof to put up some solar. That can also increase the efficiency of the system. What that solar thermal system is the sun heats up water and it heats it up to about 130 degrees, which is exactly what we need to heat all our buildings with. So some efficiencies gained there as well. And then the other opportunity is to increase the energy efficiency of all these buildings at the outset. Because it would be silly to build a system for an inefficient building, but rather we want to reduce its consumption as much as possible and then design a system of that. So as part of that, there's some efficiency projects in the library that we'll talk about, but also in some of the other buildings that we're going to explore too. Okay. So potential additional opportunities in the future. So solar thermal, we're already evaluating and kind of collecting costs on and seeing how the payback that would provide for the system, but it seems pretty promising at this point. Geothermal, aquathermal, electric heat pumps. These are all possibilities, particularly as we add more of these buildings, the purple space and the yellow spaces below. So as we're adding more space, we need more equipment. And then the question is, what should that equipment be? And these are all very efficient strategies that we can explore, particularly when we're adding more building space to the system. The energy efficiency opportunities. There's some further, basically building controls measures that we can improve upon within City Hall. We know that to be the case here in the library too. So LEDs are an opportunity here, as well as lighting controls, maybe some daylighting controls for the south vestibule area or clerestory area, whatever atrium maybe, in the library, the kind of the southeastern corner of it.
We call it the rotunda.
The rotunda.
There you go.
I would have got there eventually. And I think the roof we'll talk about in a minute. And then there's some envelope projects too. Those aren't quite as energy related, but really the prime opportunity for the library is getting the building control system replaced and updating the controls procedures. So like what people do now and not 30 years ago. We anticipate a 20 to 30% energy savings by doing so. So a pretty considerable amount of dollar savings by moving forward with that. And then there's some sewage heat recovery that we're looking at. Basically, there's sewer lines that run underneath the city, right? And all that sewage is 55 degrees, or maybe even warmer. So we could use that heat, or maybe use it as a heat sink for some of these systems in order to also increase its efficiency. The city.
I'm distracted, but how do you collect
It's not as much the sewage, but the temperature that that pipe and the fluid within it is.
So is it just a routing of the pipe across
Yeah.
the building?
We just need to make sure that there's a big enough pipe and there's a consistent flow through it. And if those kind of two check boxes are met, then we put in a heat exchanger and then suck the heat out of the sewage loop in town. So all the showers, right, go down the sewer line. That's about 120 degree water, and then other stuff that's like body temperature.
That's why I'm asking, it's just fascinating, I did not realize that was a possibility.
Yeah, so that it's really the key is getting to that 130 degree temperature, and then all of these possibilities are there. But unless we do that, then it's a lot more difficult to make something like this work. So I'm pretty excited about it. And then we're also able to kind of use a lot of the energy efficiency approaches here and then expand it across the whole portfolio of the city. So we're interested in kind of showcasing what we're able to accomplish in these 4 buildings, and then the city owns about, I think, over 40 properties. So expanding to those other properties as well. Cool. So overall, this picture is out of place, but the summary slide, right? So we have about a 20 million total project cost for this initial build out of this orange system. And like I said, we're continuing through design through the end of this year. We hope to have an updated, solid budget to bring to City Council to then move forward with. And then construction will start in 2022 with some of these building modifications specifically, and then the road work following spring, as soon as the ground thaws, to get everything routed and up and running by October 2023, so we can continue to heat and cool our buildings. But I have to answer any questions on this, and then there is one follow-up slide too on some more recent projects.
When will you guys be starting the efficiency side of it, as far as upgrading the LEDs and control systems?
Yeah, those are more of those in-building modifications, so I think those will start early next year is kind of the thought. And obviously, we'll work very closely with Perna on all these things.
So with the 20 to 30% energy savings that you talked about and the general efficiency and sustainability of this plan that you guys are developing, that's obviously a lot better than our current plan or the current system that we're working on. But how much would that be improved with that state and federal funding that you guys are kind of looking at the options for?
Yeah, the 20 to 30% for this building was just for the controls. Like if we replace those, we'll get that. And then if we're able to incorporate solar, I don't have the exact answer for that, because then it depends how big of that system can be. But what I can say, I guess, is if we're able to leverage this roof space, this building is almost, or the rooftop that can support solar is over an acre in size. And then there's a good amount of roof space here that's south facing that we can also leverage, not an acre by any means, but still sizable. So it would certainly help. Yeah. And right, this is free energy for the most part. We'll just have some pumping costs in order to pump the water from the roof down to wherever we're collecting it. So I feel, I don't want to put a figure on it, because then I'll have to live up to it, but with some data that I can show you, be like, this is where we are. So it's a really good question. I'm sorry, I don't know that yet.
You mentioned redundancy, what is plan?
Really good question. So we have redundancy within the Civic Center, and then there's also some existing equipment within some of these facilities too. And we didn't want to just replace equipment that still had useful life on it. So some of the facilities are actually contributing energy, and they'll be compensated for doing so. And then some of the facilities are just going to be takers. Like City Hall, for instance, its chiller needs to be replaced completely, so that'll be taken offline, and it still needs a heating source. So it'll be taking heat and cooling system from primarily the Civic Center. A lot of the interesting part of this is the systems in there were designed as if the building were completely full, because that's what you need to plan for, right? Is like thousands of people in the Civic Center all at one time, and then the building systems are designed to that. Then with some fudge factor on top of that by another 20%. So there's some very large equipment in this facility that can be leveraged to help heat and cool the other buildings. We are modifying, I think we need to buy one heating source here at first, And then again, as we add more building space, then we'll need to buy some additional equipment to help feed into the system to make sure everyone's solid and can be heated and cooled.
Forgive my ignorance on this, more connected to a larger energy grid.
Yep, so from an electric perspective, everything's still fed from RPU.
Oh, I meant like energy wise, like how do we sell to other buildings that aren't connected within this map that you're showing us?
Oh, okay, yep. So I think the exact structure is still being figured out, but it might be an entity within the city or a separate nonprofit entity. And then we'll have BTU meters, which are just energy meters that measure flows into the building of energy and flows out. And then subtraction at the end of the month to say, you contributed this much, you took this much.
If something happens with our system, how do we then continue to heat or cool?
Well, I would struggle to know what that might be. There is like equipment redundancy, I would say. And then, so it's really, if anything happens to the pipe that'll be buried in the ground is really kind of the only weakness here. Otherwise, what would stop is if something within the building stopped working, like an air handling unit or something like that, then that's more of a building problem, a permanent problem.
The library is well versed in road construction, obviously. Are there any preliminary estimates for how long that construction would take on that? Luckily, that's away from the front door and the drive up.
Yeah. I need to check on the timing of exactly when this is going to happen. But largely, we tried to route this through the buildings as much as possible. And I don't think all of this necessarily is going to be done in all one fell swoop. The connection to the library is going through the parking garage that's behind it. Okay. So we're really just kind of routing it behind the wall and coming right into the mechanical room on the 3rd floor. So it'll be hoping not too long, but it needs to be fast no matter what.
In terms of the equipment, Scott Ramsey had kind of mentioned that all of the equipment that the library owns currently would be part of district energy eventually, and that as things break down, it would actually be replaced as part of district energy. I think that's what he kind of mentioned.
Yeah, well. the chiller, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. So the library got a new chiller, I think. Everyone knows that. So that would be the plant equipment. So if the chiller broke down, yeah, it would be up to the district energy nonprofit or the city entity to come fix it.
I think he mentioned air handlers and the cooling tower and some of that as well.
Cooling towers for sure.
Air
handling units, that's up to Scott if he said that.
The best part of this all is that we actually don't have to pay anything or think about money, so it'll just happen.
I think we would be assessed a fee. The library would be, all of the departments that are on district energy would be assessed a fee. As part of district energy.
Got you, not just our regular cost of energy, but a fee related to the creation of the new system. Can we afford it? Is it in our budget?
I'm assuming that the city would probably.
The city would have to.
Yes.
The city's so involved in this that the city they have to make sure we have enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about money at the end of the day. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think there is one more slide of just like an update. No worries, sorry about that. So Scott also wanted me to just touch on these bullet points here. So we did do a facilities condition assessment and FCA. 19 buildings were completed as part of that assessment, the library included. The report for that is going up to council on 7/26. I think there's about 5 or 6 recommendations that Scott is making. None of them specific to the library per se, but rather how can facilities management be morphed and changed moving forward to make operations most efficient for the city moving forward, and basically leverage resources that exist across all 19 buildings, and get people back up when they need it. Folks go out on vacation, who's supporting those buildings? Like, none of these things have been figured out necessarily, and that was some of the things that I think came to light that Scott will speak to. The new roof is in the budget for next year. We worked with Perna to include that, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think we had a meeting on Monday, so we looked at the scope of the project, and I think we will have more to report as we, I think he's going back to city council, is my understanding, but this is just initial plans. But yes, I think he mentioned the roof and new insulation to go with the roof as looking at that project scope. So.
Sounds good. And then I think also part of that is this extrusion in the wall.
I think that was the investigation of, yes, what that is and, you know, what the cost would entail, but he mentioned the new roof, the insulation, and then the controls.
Okay, sounds good. And then also included in this project, as well as potential funding, kind of lumping as many projects into one as we can to just, if we're gonna be a nuisance, like let's just be a quick nuisance and not a prolonged nuisance. So as much as we can kind of leverage this work to be done all at once or in a way that works best for the library is kind of our intent. That's kind of, I think, what I was supposed to talk about, but happy to answer any questions too. Nailed it.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And then second, we have the Cersei Dynamics master agreement that we already discussed, I recall.
Well, as we talked about the software as a service agreement, we brought back the master contract. So so Cersei Dynamics is our primary vendor for all library software. And we have a master agreement with them, and then we have the Blue Cloud Mobile, which you approved last month, and the software as a service contract, those kinds of things are tied onto it. And so we'll need to bring that back next month.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure, I will check with Cersei Dynamics on when they need this contract by.
Yeah, time sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is one that needs to go through the city, because when we did the master contract, we went to the mayor's office to be executed, so I'll have to check with Steve when he's back on.
Okay. And a quick question for you and her now. What's typically our lead time when we know we have to sign a contract? Is it 30 days or 60 days?
It depends on the vendor. It can be hugely different. We have vendors that we struggle to get contracts out of, and then we get some that are after the start date. You know, I mean, it kind of goes all over the place.
Got you. I'm just wondering if there's a way to notify the board that, you know, we actually have time-sensitive contracts that need to be agreed upon and signed, because I'm wondering now, if we don't sign it in time, will it go to the city in time, and what are the implications? I'm assuming it's not
I mean,
bad.
the other option we do have is to call a special meeting, that the agenda for the meeting is we're gonna approve the Del Rio contract and the Cersei Dynamics master contract.
It can be a 10-minute meeting
We can have a 10-minute meeting and everything can be on the consent agenda because we've already discussed it. That would be the other option. And we can follow up with you, Antonia, when we know what the timeline is for the Cersei Dynamics.
That sounds good. Thank you. So now we can jump into the direct and informational items, starting with the updates. And I know you've already given the biggest update.
Right. Other than what's in the board packet, just that, you know, we're opening back up more. We're you know, starting to move furniture and working on post-pandemic at some point. I mean, we're not quite there yet. You know, we still are requiring masks and new services, and we're still not doing programming yet, but we're moving in that direction.
Bookmobile is back.
The bookmobile is working on it, yes. I mean, they have been out the whole time, you can't be on it, but they'll run on, get it, or they'll provide holds for you, and you say, pull 10 mysteries off the shelf for you, for me to go through. So, yeah, being as service-minded as possible, and yes, people are very anxious to get back on the bookmobile.
Any questions before we move on to the equity plan update? All right, moving on to the equity plan update. All right.
We continue to work continuously on equity. And you'll see that, you know, we're continuing to have training and discussions, and the policy work, of course, is all about our DEI work. We're working, the city is working on their equity plan as well, and so we had a first chance to review it with the city's DEI director. So continuing to work the city's, or the library's plan. And we will be, when the city's plan comes out, we'll be asked to put our action items, they'll become part of the whole city plan. So, yeah. So were there any questions about anything over the last couple of months?
No, I was just happy to see all the activities. I have a personal interest in understanding how we can drive the city's own equity actions, but. I'll learn more about that.
Heather, do you want to talk about being on the city team?
Sure. Andy and Karen and I are on a City of Rochester Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement team. We just had our second meeting today. So it's 30, 40 people from throughout the city that are coming together to ensure that our community engagement efforts are really focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it's going to be some good work moving the whole city together.
Is there a team that exists that can create policy with regards to DEI in the city, or where does that come from?
There is not at this point. I think we're leading the way, yeah, on that. So I think it'll be one of those things that as the city's DEI director it takes some momentum and a commitment to do the work, to say I'm going to review every single policy. And so I think we're creating a model for how to do it for the city when they get a little farther along.
Thank you guys for the very in-depth update. Very detailed. Any questions on the equity plan? All right, we can move into sharing strengths. Do we have any sharing strengths today?
Do you want to talk about the grant? The digital?
Sure. So as part of the, we are looking at applying for a grant from the Emergency Connectivity Fund, and there is about 1.6 billion from federal money available. And the Emergency Connectivity Fund basically allows you to apply for funding it is specific funding because it's basically funding for the funding is very specific in terms of it has to be for connected devices that allows you to, if you do not have access to internet and or devices for remote learning. Initially, we thought that we did not qualify, but there is some leeway in the parameters, and the leeway basically is adequate connectivity and or adequate device. So that's the way that we are interpreting that, because Steve and I attended a few webinars, and that's what the webinar basically said. It's the USAC is the company that is overseeing, that's administering the grant, and they basically said that the parameters you have a little bit leeway with that parameter. So that's what we are following, and we are right now looking at possibly applying for 1,000 connected devices. We had a meeting, we've had a couple of meetings, and right now we're looking at working with partners on getting these connected devices to students and to library patrons, because there is documentation that the patrons would have to sign saying that they do not have adequate connectivity and or devices, and they're using these devices primarily for remote learning. We have to make sure that they know what they're signing. So a team is working on this right now. So that's what it's going to be a pretty large project, because applying for processing and getting 1,000 devices out to our patrons is going to be a pretty large project.
Do hotspots count?
So this connected devices actually will have the hotspot in it. Okay. And the grant will also pay for 1 year of service as well.
And so should we be considering what it looks like after that year of service is completed?
Yes. We'll be having those conversations. There's no way we have in the budget to keep up counting.
Which is why I bring it up now, because I feel like we should be establishing metrics up front that allow us to measure the impact, so that we can kind of validate potential budget, you know.
Absolutely. And we're working with community partners who are already working on other methods of getting families connected. And so we're trying to stay in lockstep because we know a lot of these nonprofits or other agencies have connections into communities of need. So, yeah, we're trying to package all of that together.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yes.
I was just wondering if that's in direct connection to like the Rochester Public Schools online school that they're going to be running next year, or like Minnesota online school, or just other like types of.
Not necessarily, but I know the school district is also applying for even more devices than we are. So, yeah. So we're in conversation with them as well.
Wonderful.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Any questions from the board? Do you feel comfortable moving to adjourn? Before I do that, I would just ask that if you guys could just shoot an email about the urgency with regard to the Cersei Dynamics Master Agreement and whether we need to call some sort of short meeting for us to do approval.
Okay.
Also want to understand the implications of the Dover agreement as well. And then if, I don't know how we can do it without sounding like we're scolding the team, but I'd really like to know what we can expect for attendance at the August meeting, just so we can really make sure that we have quorum. So, thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah. Welcome to our new board.
Yeah, welcome, Scott.
Thank you.